Hey everybody, I'm live. Hey, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Zenny Abraham. I'm CEO of Zenny 62 Media, but in my past life, I was Oakland Redevelopment Agency intern in 1987, then hired as a consultant after I built something called the Area Redevelopment Economic Model. I was the data gatherer and model builder for another city redevelopment project called the Coliseum Redevelopment Area, which grew to over 7,000 acres and existed until 2011 when California governor for the second time, Jerry Brown, killed redevelopment as we knew it, only to reintroduce redevelopment tax increment financing 4 years later. But during that gap, we lost a lot of institutional memory, and a lot of people who were redevelopment experts went on to other work or retired or in some cases passed away. So here we are now with I'm gonna have to take that. Hold on a second, folks. I'm on live. I have to call you back. Okay, I'll see you. So at any rate, uh, since then we've had tax increment financing, which we haven't used, and now we have the situation with the Oakland Coliseum, which is the latest iteration of Coliseum City, really, and we have an organization, uh, the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, which runs both the Coliseum Stadium and the Oakland Arena, and has since in different forms 1968. Well, and so now in its latest form of structure, that was put into place in 1996 at the behest of then Oakland City Council President Ignacio de la Fuente, and it was just more recently reformed to add a larger advisory board of business people at my calling, as presented by then chairperson Rebecca Kaplan when she was district at large council member. Now we have the results of a competition that some people say never happened. First of all, this is to clear up a number of mistruths and deliberate outright lies told about this project simply because they don't like that. Let me put it on the table. An African American group was selected, but the competition was between not one, but two African American groups. The other one led by David Stewart, and also had on it Elaine Brown, the legendary Black Panther member of the Black Panther Party, who is in current uh, status a housing developer, an affordable housing developer. So they lost out. There are a number of people who are angry about their loss, including my good friend Ray Leon, and they didn't like the way that AASEG was brought in terms of this competition, and what the changes Oakland Mayor Shang Tao made after the competition was set by Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and the winner was selected by Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf. Mayor Tao came in and changed it so that the property, in her idea, the Coliseum property owned by Coliseum Way Partners, but then taken back over by the county and the city, they didn't like that the money was not going directly to the general fund, and that's what Shang Tao tried to engineer. Long story short, her direct deposit idea failed simply because of the way the law is structured. It has to go through a due diligence process for other developers, or rather, not to find other developers first, and then go through the due diligence process regarding those developers, those affordable housing developers. And there are bond covenants that are attached to the property, which have to be undone, unwound before a sale can be considered complete. That takes a lot of time. All right. And so the milestones that were brought up originally had nothing to do with the unwinding process that existed. So those timetables and deadlines had to be brought in line with the unwinding process, thus lengthening them out, which means the original timing payment deadlines were not deadlines at all. They were errors. And yet those who don't like the fact that AASEG is involved, they don't like the court battle between Ray Bobbitt and Breen Dixon, um, that where it came out that Ray had created AASEG land, and he did it because, frankly speaking, Breen Dixon and his partner on his side were, and this is Breen. Breen says, he would say to me, there are things that I don't want to happen, and it's not going to happen. And these were little things, all right, things that have to do with land use, who selected a developer, everything else. And when you have constant rancor, you cannot come to a mutual decision. And so people that would want to work for you or with you, not work for you, but with you, land purchasers and developers and everything else, okay? People who would want to do that simply would just cut out and go elsewhere. And Ray didn't want that to happen, all right? So he did something that, I've criticized him for doing, and he knows we're great friends. So I don't, unlike other people, I'm not spineless. I will tell you when you're not doing something properly and how to straighten it out. That's what friends do. Okay. But you have a lot of people around active in Oakland political circles who don't act with that kind of spine. All right. They don't. They can sometimes, but when it matters the most, they don't. And so where we are is in this situation where you have people who don't like the AASEG is involved. They're angry with that process. But if you take a look at it from the standpoint of taking an action to get to an objective, or what some people would say that the ends justify the means, right? Then as far as Ray had gotten, it actually validates his action, because absent not creating a new LLC, they still would have been stuck, and arguably the whole effort would have died on the vine. That's where they were. All right. So now here, Ray has this quasi new path, and managed to finally get to a point where they created a disposition process that in a few months will end with the Oakland Acquisition Company, which is really the replacement for AASEG, taking over the Coliseum properties. Now, they brought in the Oakview Group, and the way the hierarchy works is the Oakview Group is the ultimate buyer of the the arena, the Oakland Arena. It is valued at $50 million. Now, because I've experienced at this going back to 1987, decided to conduct a very simple internal rate of return calculation going back over 4 years of revenue from the arena, but taking out the subsidy that the arena gets on an annual basis. And what I came up with, to cut to the chase, is that there was an average revenue from the arena of $2.5 million period, okay, annually over that period, okay? And I'm sorry, folks, but $2.5 million times 4 is $10 million. Why I say times 4? Because that's the addition you have to do to achieve what the billion value is going to be over a multi-year period. But there's another way to do it, all right? And in that other way, if you want to determine the value, is what's called a multiplier value, income multiplier value method. And that income multiplier value way says that you take the most recent average revenue for the arena, 2.5 million, all right, again, the average, okay, and then say, what is that times 6? All right, that's 15 million. So in other words, the Oakland Arena comes in at best at $15 million using the income multiplier method, and using the franchise value method, it comes in at 10 million. That's much below $50 million. And yet $50 million is the number pegged by the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, the city and the county, to part with the arena. Now, who wins? Obviously, if you have a project that's only generating $2.5 million of revenue, such that you have to add a giant subsidy to it, guess what? You know who gets the windfall? The city of Oakland and the county of Alameda get that windfall. There's no other way to look at it than that. And yet you have people out here like Sandy C on Nextdoor who claim that they're real estate experts. They present no resume to justify their claim. They provide no background to justify their claim that you can actually, track. Nothing like that. All right. And yet they're saying real estate experts. And then they go around and they mix numbers. And then Oakland Report does this heinous presentation where they say, okay, for the stadium, they're spreading out the payments. All right. And because they're spreading out the payments, that's a loan. It's not a loan. It's a spreading out of payments, period. The city doesn't call it a loan. But Oakland Report has the audacity to believe that it knows better and is just going to call it a loan just because. I went through a similar situation way back in 1994 when I was my Clarion columnist, where I said that the city of Oakland had money and was hiding the money. Out of respect for what I wrote, because we didn't have the internet then at that time. It was just being created by DARPA in Washington. But Craig Koshin devoted a whole agenda item during an Oakland City Council meeting toward my claim. They had a huge board that they made specifically for that presentation, and they broke down the fund balances that were created for these different revenue areas. And at the end, it was all exhausted. All right. And what I learned was that I had totally forgotten that the city could park these monies in these fund balances. And I objected to that use. But the reality is that it's done that way and has been done that way for many, many decades now. That's a fact. All right. And for me to turn around and say, well, just because I say it's different, it's wrong. Okay. Yeah. Maybe if I can get other people to agree and then we change the law so that you can't just park money in fund balances, guess what? That doesn't mean that that money is going to be unallocated. It means it's going to be allocated in some kind of way. You're still going to wind up in the same situation, which means the city has so much money allocated for different areas that there's no money available unless you kill a fund balance and you reassign that money someplace else. All right. So the one thing I can say is that thanks to Craig Koshin, when he was city manager, he had enough respect for what I was putting out. And not only that, it was done in the Montclarian. A lot of people read the Montclarian, I think 40,000 strong. And they said, yeah, Zinni's got a great point. Zinni's got a great point. So what's going on here is you have a lot of people who are influenced by, first of all, their dislike for the deal as it went to AASEG. Some people, even people who are African-American, like Ray, who don't like, not Ray Leon, who don't like that Dave Stewart didn't get the deal. All right. And so believe that, well, hey, this person can't get the deal done because, well, he's also black. All right. Truth told. All right. There's a lot of thoughts here and conversations here that really need to be put out for public discussion, because it says a lot of negative stuff about how we've come along as folks and our ability to trust each other. I'm just saying it just like that, and playing it where it lay. All right. Playing it where it lay. But here's the facts, folks. The fact is this, and this is where I disagree with everybody that has come to a criticism, and particularly Oakland Report on this and others, is this. First of all, it's wrong for you to try to reinvent the wheel and say, well, it goes like it's a loan because I say it's a loan. No, that's not that's not how it works. It's not a loan. A loan, here's the technical reason why it's not a loan. A loan calls for a passing through of money to a person or organization that needs it, and you pay back that over a period of time. In point of fact, there is no such deal. There's no money going into the Oakland Acquisition Company's hands that's going to use to buy back. That idea was presented and it's wrong. Okay, it is wrong. In fact, Oakland report referred to a, a 2024 city document, city council document, and city council agenda that purportedly showed that there was a loan to Ray Bobbitt. But in point of fact, there was no loan to Ray Bobbitt. In fact, there was nothing called AASEG loan. And then to make it personal toward Ray Bobbitt really shows the bias that Oakland Report has. It's like they're trying to make fun of Ray as a black man. Like, oh, Ray Bobbitt, you can't possibly give it to him. And they'll show a photograph of Ray that's doctored a little bit to make him more overweight than he is. Okay? That's what's going on here, folks. All right, that's what's going on here, folks, and it's garbage. If you don't want the city of Oakland to succeed, you're going about it the right way. All right. But what's nice here is that you have people like the Oakland Group who are not listening to you and are willing to lay down money to buy the Oakland Arena, and they will put money into it to increase its value to $1 billion because they're wealthy enough not to care that they technically overpaid for the facility, but they overpaid for it. All right. They overpaid for it. And no one has been able to prove otherwise because the people looking at this, including Oakland Report, do not know real estate investment analysis to save their lives or my lives or anybody else's. All right. And that's where we're at. And so they had another person, I think it was Sandy C, who said, well, the total project is 125 million, yet they only got 65 million. And Sandy C screwed up the whole matter. The 65 million is 60 million that applies to the stadium. All right. And the 125 million is not even that, it's 115 million. And it is the stadium and the arena added together. Okay. But this person went off and just made up numbers in their own head out of some dislike for AASEG being involved. Just because you don't like that somebody is involved, it doesn't give you the right to come up with BS. All right. I don't care what your real reason is. You don't lie. And that's what's going on. You don't lie. And if you just don't know something, just admit it. I admitted I learned something way back in 1994 where Craig Koshin took his action as city manager to say, hey, look, we don't have the money and here's why. All right. Today, I say City of Oakland does have the money, but because we're not using tax increment financing, and I can prove that, and not only that, they're consultants who've done project work on Howard Terminal, who also proved that we actually had $5 billion to come out of Howard Terminal that we would never realize because we didn't implement it correctly, which is a whole other story. If you want to criticize any project or anything, why don't you criticize the lousy negative internal rate of return as reflective of the fact that the city has not properly developed the arena to make any money, let alone the stadium, which is in worse shape from a value perspective. So bad that I can make an argument that it's actually worth less than 15 million. All right. This is nuts. All of this stuff is absolutely nuts. And yet, in all of you claiming that the city of Oakland is, losing money, you're not at all. It's actually gaining money because it basically did what Oakland was famous for doing, putting no money into its stadiums and arenas, save for the Warriors project in 1998, and then just sort of living off the happenstance of, for example, the 5 times that the NBA Finals was in Oakland, the 4 times the Warriors won, and then all of the marketing and visibility that came from that. But then the city didn't say, hey, look, let's start a sports commission and get more of that. As I've been advocating since I started the city's first actual sports commission in 1999, the Oakland Alameda County Sports Commission that was formed to go after the 2005 Super Bowl and other events. But the reason why it didn't last is because I wrote an email after I found out that Jerry Brown was having meetings behind my back and with what's called a group of CEOs, not allowing me to present the sponsorship idea I came up with, a plan I came up with that would raise 24 million, which would make our bid the most expensive in NFL history, according to Jim Steig, who was the NFL's senior vice president of special events at the time, actually executive vice president for special events at the time, and they couldn't understand that, hey, you as a sponsor could literally buy the right to put your logos and other activations at the east side of the Coliseum, that building, for 30 million for the Super Bowl. They didn't get that. In fact, Dina McClain, in a meeting, when she was executive director for the Coliseum on the 25th of August of 2000, if memory recalls correctly, we were at the county's offices, said, I don't get this thing called sports sponsorship. And she was executive director of the Coliseum. All right. I had Scott Haggerty sitting over on my right, and I looked at him, we looked at each other, and it's like, huh? She's running the Coliseum. That's the situation we were in. Okay. And I'm working on the Super Bowl. And so Jerry has the nerve to want somebody else to run it when the city itself didn't even know what it was doing, but Jerry just didn't like it. The mistake that I made was I wrote an email which basically said that the mayor, Jerry Brown, was not comfortable with hearing somebody who was intellectually aggressive and African American, to which San Francisco Chronicle columnist Chip Johnson got a hold of my email and said, in other words, he's saying that Jerry is racist. But if Jerry fired me on that basis, guess what, folks? That's illegal. All right. What Jerry did was illegal. To fire me strictly on that basis was illegal. And yet that's what he did. And that's why you do not have a sports commission today, because Bill Claggett, who was over the Office of Economic Development and Employment at the time, had, unbeknownst to me, parked $80,000 to fund the sports commission that the previous city attorney, Jane Williams, had told me it would take 2 years to get federal approval for. I got it in 4 months. 4 months. You hear what I'm saying? 4 months. All right. So you want to know why Oakland is in the shape it is today? Just talk to me about what I went through. I'll tell you. And that's why I started Oakland's first blog, because the news organizations weren't going to report it, even though, thank you, Laura Counts of the Tribune at the time, she said I single-handedly nearly brought the Super Bowl to Oakland, put the whole thing on my shoulders. She wrote that. Thank you, Laura. I'll never forget that, obviously. All right. But Oakland has got to come to grips with the fact that it hasn't spent money on sports facilities. We're in the facilities business. My friend, Oakland Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley, says that we're out of the sports business. Keith Carson says the same thing. Gentlemen, friends, you were never in the sports business. You were in the facilities business. You forgot that. That's why we don't have a convention center worth anything now. Alameda County needs a great giant convention center. We got nothing. And don't tell me downtown Oakland's convention center at 150,000 square feet counts. It doesn't. Yeah, people in San Francisco, like over at the Hotel Council, waiting to this day for Oakland to get its act together, knowing doggone well that a better developed Oakland in terms of its tourism infrastructure benefits San Francisco and the Bay Area. Wake up, everybody. Wake the blank up. All right. Oakland Report, what you guys are putting out is wrong. I'm way ahead of you on this. I have more years on this than you do. So constant disrespect. You know what? I respect what you guys are doing in terms of putting things out there, but at least try to get it right. You make no effort to get it right whatsoever. Subscribe to Zenny62, and thank you, everybody, for listening and paying attention. And please share about this. And hey, also become members of Zenny62 on YouTube. Thank you. Hey, $24 a month. Thank you. See ya.